Have you ever ignored a warning? Maybe it was a storm alert on your phone. Maybe it was a check engine light. Maybe it was a quiet voice inside saying, "You need to move. Now." Most of the time, warnings feel inconvenient, overdramatic, easy to delay. But there was a moment in history when ignoring a warning meant losing everything. And Jesus saw it coming decades before it happened. Scene 1. The Quiet Prophecy. It was just another day in Jerusalem when Jesus said the words. The temple stood tall, massive white stones, gold reflecting the sunlight. It was the pride of the nation. To the people, it felt permanent, untouchable. And then Jesus said something that stopped his disciples in their tracks. In Gospel of Matthew 24:15-16 and Gospel of Luke 21:20, he warned them, "When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, when you see the abomination standing in the holy place, run. Don't pack. Don't go back inside. Don't hesitate. Run to the mountains." To the disciples, this sounded impossible. Jerusalem, destroyed, the temple, desecrated. That temple was the heart of their world. But Jesus wasn't speaking in poetry. He was giving instructions. Clear, urgent, practical. Scene 2. 40 years later. Fast forward, nearly 4 decades. Jesus had been crucified. He had risen. The gospel had spread. And Jerusalem was tense. Rome ruled everything. Taxes were heavy. Soldiers were everywhere. Rebellion simmered in the streets. Then it happened. Roman legions marched toward the city. Their banners waved in the wind, large military standards, each bearing symbols of Roman power. Eagles of gold, emblems representing Caesar, who many in Rome treated as divine. To Jewish eyes, those standards weren't just flags, they were idols. When those Roman standards were planted in the holy ground surrounding Jerusalem, territory considered sacred even beyond the walls, it was more than a military move. It was the sign. The exact sign Jesus had described. Scene 3. The moment of decision. Imagine you're there. You're a follower of Christ. You remember his words. You're standing on your rooftop in Jerusalem when you see it. Roman soldiers assembling. Standards rising. The city surrounded. Your heart pounds. This is it. Jesus said this would happen. Now you have seconds to decide. Do you stay and hope things calm down? Do you wait for more information? Or do you trust what he said, fully, and leave everything behind? Because that's what he said to do. If you're on the housetop, don't go down into your house. If you're in the field, don't go back for your coat. Don't gather valuables. Don't delay. Just go. Scene 4. What it meant to leave. Leaving wasn't simple. Homes represented security. Family heirlooms carried memories. Businesses took years to build. Some people likely had savings hidden inside, documents, clothing, food storage. And Jesus said, don't even go back for your outer garment. In other words, don't calculate, don't negotiate, don't rationalize. Move, because delay could cost your life. And here's what makes this powerful. This wasn't panic. It was preparation. Jesus had warned them decades earlier so that when the moment came, fear wouldn't paralyze them. They would recognize the sign. Scene 5. The escape history tells us something remarkable. When Roman forces first surrounded Jerusalem around AD 66, they unexpectedly withdrew for a short time. It was strange, unpredictable, but for believers who remembered Jesus' words, it was an open door, and they took it. Early Christian historians like Eusebius recorded that followers of Christ fled to a town called Pella, across the Jordan River. They didn't wait for confirmation from political leaders. They didn't debate endlessly. They obeyed the warning, and they escaped. Scene 6. Those who stayed, not everyone left. Many believed Jerusalem was invincible. Some trusted the temple. Some trusted their leaders. Some trusted that Rome would never fully destroy such a historic city, but in AD 70, Roman armies returned under General Titus. This time, they did not withdraw. Jerusalem was besieged, food ran out, desperation grew, the city fell. The temple was burned, just as Jesus had said. What once seemed permanent was reduced to rubble. Scene 7. The human side of the story. Pause for a moment. Think about the believers who fled. They left behind houses they may never see again. Neighbors who thought they were overreacting. Possibly extended family who refused to go. They walked away with little more than the clothes they were wearing. But they walked away alive. And sometimes obedience looks exactly like that. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet, immediate response to a clear warning. Scene 8. Why Jesus gave specific instructions. What stands out in this prophecy is how practical it is. Jesus didn't say, when it happens, pray about it for 3 weeks. He didn't say, hold a committee meeting. He said, don't go back inside. Don't grab your stuff. Don't delay. Because in moments of crisis, hesitation is dangerous. There are seasons when careful planning is wise, and there are moments when immediate obedience is survival. This was the second kind. Scene 9. The psychology of delay. Why would someone hesitate? Because leaving means loss. It means uncertainty. It means stepping into the unknown with nothing guaranteed except the word of Christ. And that's uncomfortable. Even today, we struggle with this. We ignore warning signs in relationships, in finances, in health, in spiritual life. We say, I'll deal with it later. But sometimes, later doesn't come. The believers in Jerusalem survived because they treated Jesus' warning as real. Not symbolic, not exaggerated, real. Scene 10. The Holy Ground. The prophecy mentions something powerful, the idolatrous standard standing in the holy ground. For Jewish listeners, holy ground wasn't just the temple building. It extended beyond the city walls, areas considered sacred because of God's presence and covenant history. When Roman emblems, symbols of empire and false worship, were planted there, it signaled spiritual violation as well as military threat. It was the collision of kingdoms, Rome's power versus God's purposes. And in that moment, Jesus' followers didn't fight for territory, they fled. Sometimes faith isn't about standing your ground. Sometimes it's about knowing when to move. Scene 11. Trusting the long term. Word. Think about this. The believers had to remember something Jesus said decades earlier. Some of them weren't even alive when he first spoke it. They would have heard it passed down, which means they trusted the reliability of his word over the stability of their environment. The temple looked stronger than a spoken prophecy, but the prophecy outlasted the temple. That's powerful. Scene 12. A cinematic moment. Picture the scene. A mother grabbing her child's hand. A father urging his family toward the gate. Believers moving quietly but urgently. Dust rising from the road as they head toward the hills. No grand speeches. No dramatic farewell. Just obedience. Behind them stands Jerusalem, majestic, historic, proud. Ahead of them are mountains and uncertainty. But they choose the mountains because Jesus said so. Scene 13. The lesson without preaching. This story isn't about fear, it's about readiness. It's about recognizing that when God gives clear direction, timing matters. There are moments in life when we're called to build, and moments when we're called to leave. The wisdom is knowing the difference. The followers of Christ in Judea didn't hesitate when the signal appeared. And that immediate obedience saved them from what Scripture calls the general destruction. Scene 14. For us today. We may not see Roman standards outside our cities, but we do experience warnings, convictions, promptings, moments of clarity. The question is, will we treat them seriously? Or will we delay until it's too late? The story of Jerusalem's fall is tragic, but the story of the believers who escaped is hopeful, because it proves something. When Christ warns, he also provides a way out. Closing scene, the echo of the mountains. Years after Jerusalem fell, those who had fled would tell their children, "We left with nothing, but we kept our lives." And somewhere in their memories, they would hear the voice of Jesus saying,
"When you see the sign, go immediately, no delay, because sometimes the difference between safety and destruction is a single decision made in trust."